Yeah, this is going to sound like fingers across the chalkboard to a lot of people in the R2B ALN community. But a PMP.
Okay. So I think first off, I really want to get an idea of your background. So kind of give me some idea of what you've done in the past.
So I've been a project manager now for about 25 years, starting out my career in a traditional project path with a fixed scope PMP project types. And then in the early 2000s, migrating to Agile with much of the high-tech industry. I've spent most of my career in IT and software development for internal use for organizations to be productive, but it's still Agile software development for hardware and software implementations. I've served as a servant leader on Scrum teams. Scrum's a Scrum. I've been in the PMO, overseeing the portfolio at the planning level, and I've overseen Agile transformations at a transformation office level as well.
Okay, so 25 years project management, you kind of, so I'm assuming here you started from traditional project management.
That's correct.
Kind of along the way, journey into Agile. So I want to I asked you to be here because I want to know, one, what is Agile Project Management?
Well, that's one of those questions where you'll get a different answer from everyone you ask. I would ask back, is there something in particular you're looking to try to solve?
So one of the things, along my journey here, learning about Agile, I get into this where I see people, there's a title, people are looking, there's job vacancy out there, say, hey, we want to hire Agile Project Manager, right? Coming from, I've done project management traditional, I've done Agile, but this is like, it's a mix, it's Agile Project Management, right? Agile Project Management. So what is it so one, what is really Agile Project Management? And then two, what is the role of Agile Project Manager?
Got it. Okay. So if we take a look at Agile in particular, let's take a look at Scrum. Because Scrum's kind of easy to understand. The innovation in Scrum around project management is that the role of the project manager was formally divided into the three principal roles: the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the team. So the things that you'd be looking to a single project manager to manage in that fixed scope project, once we started getting to Agile, those authorities were distributed out across the team. And so it kind of leads a question then is, if we're saying that we have a role of an Agile project manager, distributed project management out to the various roles of the teams, what does that person do? Well, there's the easiest way to look at this is that Agile project management tends to be in organizations that have made a transformation to Agile. So they had a traditional role for a project manager, and now as they pivot to Agile, they're trying to figure out what to do with that role.
Okay.
Now, sometimes an Agile project manager is a role where basically the company transitioning to to an Agile project said, business analysts, you're now product owners, good luck.
Okay.
And project managers, Scrum Masters, good luck. And great, we're done. We've transformed. So that's one case. The other case is where we have inside organizations, institutions, practices, functions that aren't represented in Scrum particularly well, like going to the steering committee and getting money, or how we plug into certain procurement activities, for contracting activities, or things that we have to do to manage the business of managing the project. And sometimes when we say Agile Project Manager, we say Scrum Master working with the teams, plus all this overhead that goes with managing projects in our company.
So it's a layer on top, right? That's the stuff that a Scrum Master doesn't do today, but it is needed. And that's what it sounds like.
Largely. I mean, in my opinion, the product owner has one of the most difficult jobs of of Agile or especially of Scrum,
Right.
because it's sort of this singularity where all of the complexities of business processes that need to take place in order to make the project operate kind of get focused on the product owner, and behind the product owner, all these business processes occur. When we have an Agile project manager, it's kind of bringing some of those from, out from behind the product owner into the Scrum Master role and saying, you're going to have to work with the teams, but you're also going to have to do all of this process overhead.
So basically, we are not taking things away from Agile. We're not taking away from the Scrum Master. We're still following the Agile, the Agile way of doing things, the mindset and things like that, except that there are things that is not covered from a business standpoint. Like, you talk about, getting sponsorship and things like that is needed to be done. So isn't that something that a product owner can do as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think what we're talking about is an organization that's pivoted away from a business model where they were doing fixed scope planning and strategic management planning. So you had that 6 months to 3 months before the start of the fiscal year. We start into this fiscal planning process. Milestones are set, goals are developed, money is now allocated out. And that strategic planning office is looking for something back. They're looking for metrics on your run rate for your project spend. They're looking for a bunch of other data about your project deliverables. And so you've got this kind of mismatch between the pivot that we've made to Agile and the funding model that's enabling the project team to actually exist and do work. And in that tension, you have this project manager attempting to manage that mismatch.
So is this a in-between state between traditional and going fully Agile? Is that what you see it in between, or is it just that it does need to exist because how business works today?
Oh, I'd like to think it's an in-between state, but I think it's an in-between state that takes a very, very, very long time to resolve. Again, it's mostly around the funding model and how the model gets reported. If there are expectations that we're funding milestones and we're reporting on milestones, then while we're attempting to manage our backlogs and continuously reprioritize at the program level and below, at the portfolio level and above, they're still looking for, how are you doing to deliver against my milestones? And it creates a really kind of a difficult challenge for the person who's labeled as a project manager to walk between worlds.
So traditionally, project manager owns the project. It owns almost, the resources and everything around it, right? So in this Agile project manager, do they still own the same thing?
Well, I don't agree that the project manager owns the resources. It depends on the organization. And so the answer to your question is depends on what you started from. Traditionally, there are 3 types of project cultures. There's projectized, which would be like, The Apprentice, where the project manager owns everything, is the top dog, which is, of course, every project manager thinks they live in a projectized environment. Just ask them, they'll tell you. On the opposite side of the spectrum, it's a functional organization. Functional manager owns the MBOs, owns the team, but the project manager is really a functional role where they are keeping track of tasks. They're keeping track of data, logging issues, but it's much more of an administrative role than a leadership role. And then in between the two, you've got the matrix organization, which is the most common thing that we have today, where you've got a functional manager who owns the resources. You have a project manager who owns the process for delivering project results, and the functional manager and the project manager have to sort out how they're going to work together to not be in conflict. So when we've made the pivot to Agile and we've carried this role of the project manager into our new world, because we haven't really divested ourselves from a lot of these executive or strategic planning oversight functions, PMO functions, financial planning functions, whatever. It depends on where we started from. If you started from projectized, then the project manager is losing an awful lot of power and divesting that to the team. that can be a challenge. Your project manager doesn't always like to do that. If you're coming from a coordination role, project manager is actually getting a lot more authority because the Scrum Master, as a facilitator of the process, has a lot more respect in many cases than a project coordinator would have. And if you're dealing with the most common thing, which is the matrix organization, what you have is a mess. And that's, I think, what a lot of companies turning to Agile and trying to figure out where project management fits. They're starting from the most complex business model, the matrix organization, and they're divesting project management authorities to 3 different roles in Scrum, which is commonly what we turn to. And we're pulling those project management functions from a functional manager and a project manager, and it can create an awful lot of tension.
Now, so assuming that, hey, I saw this job posting, it says Agile Project Manager. So as a person that say, okay, cool, I'm looking for a job, that is something interesting. What do I need to do as a person, to become, what skill set do I need to have to become a Agile Project Manager?
Well, you have to ask, what are the roles and responsibilities as an Agile Project Manager? Because like I said, what constitutes an Agile Project Manager is going to be largely dependent on the culture that you're moving away from and your understanding of Agile that you're moving towards. And in some cases, what they really are looking for is not a project manager at all. They're looking for some sort of program manager or portfolio manager to report at. If you're in the SAFe model, you're actually kind of operating above the program level in that portfolio level.
So talking about SAFe, is there a role in SAFe that relates to an Agile Project Manager?
Not really. Again, it's one of those difficult things. An RTE is a little bit like an Agile Project Manager because the RTE has that coordinating function across all of these complex domains in the enterprise that you're trying to align in the release train, like enterprise risk management, corporate security and compliance, certainly finance and accounting, HR, these other organizations. And so RTE is most closely aligned to that. A VSE, if we're still, I think, using that term in 4.5, I'm not sure. A VSE would be kind of the same thing, because a VSE, a value stream, is anything that transforms raw material of some sort into a product at the other end. So again, you're focused on a process. So Agile Project Manager in a SAFe environment might actually be a VSE.
No, so we talk about it depends, right? It depends on the job itself. Are there any basic knowledge that somebody needs to have? I mean, so if I look at it as, okay, as a Scrum Master, you kind of know the Scrum process, so it almost is not enough, I guess. Maybe you needed more skills. I mean, what are the things that would say, okay, to be successful as an Agile Project Manager, are there any basic that you will provide and say, hey, XYZ, for you to be successful at what you do as Agile Project Manager, you must have this, or you must know this?
Yeah, this is going to sound like fingers across the chalkboard to a lot of people in the RTP ALN community. A PMP. I know a couple of people who refer to themselves as recovering PMP. But I would say, if you look at the PMBOK, obviously chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7, we throw them out. Right. We're not developing work breakdown structure dictionary. We're not scheduling for critical path. We're certainly not assigning fixed resources on the budget. Quality, on the other hand, quality is essentially, the PMBOK's quality is sort of a business-focused lean point of view. So when you're talking about interacting with corporate risk management, corporate controls, InfoSec, other institutions that say before you can get out into production, you have to demonstrate the following. Or when you're doing root cause analysis for DevOps concerns or other things, if you're in that Agile Project Management role and you understand Chapter 8 of the PMBOK, you're in pretty good shape. Obviously, risk chapter, throw it right out. You don't need that. But human resources management, a lot of that stuff, even if it's just to know not what to do, right? We don't need to know, McGregor's XY theory, but we know that we should not be focused on XY theory. And I would say all of procurement management that you learned when you got your PMP is useful as an Agile Project Management, because at some point you're dealing with contracting.
Okay. I I think that's all the questions I have for you right now. I don't think if there's anything else. This is a topic that I've been trying to figure out. W- I have my own thoughts about it. Definitely I don't have that much understanding. I'm looking for somebody that has done it, been there before, seen it. Say, here's what it looks like. My understanding is that it's an in-between state, kind of like you talk about, but maybe I'm wrong. And then I'm kind of still new to all this agile project management world, right?
Well, I agree with you. And I think that the first thing I would say is if I was seeking a job as an agile
Right.
project manager, I would proceed with caution. You
Right.
know, it's probably a very good job. They probably need you,
Right.
and it has a lot of exciting opportunities to help the organization grow. But it also means that they've got one foot in each world, that they might not really understand what agile is, or worse, they do understand what it is, but the rest of the company hasn't come with them.
Right.
And so you're going to find yourself wrestling a lot with
Right.
the legacy culture and the target culture. But if you're a transformation specialist or an organizational change specialist, if you're interested in moving an organization to a new capability in realizing a strategic management plan through strategic execution, evolution, that role could be extremely exciting and challenging, and could provide a lot of opportunities for you to apply or to learn to apply a great deal of knowledge around organizational systems design, organizational change management, and executive influence and executive leadership that you might not be able to in another position. So there's lots of opportunity in there as well.
Okay, cool. All right, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me to participate. It's been a pleasure.